This is a round tube steel. I will cut it to a length of 17 millimeters. To cut this round tube metal, I use a lathe to cut it. When the round tube metal is cut, the next steps are: I use a sheet metal sheet with a thickness of 8 millimeters. And this is a plastic panel that I used as a model to pair on a metal plate. I will make it like this. And it will also be in this form. I'm going to cut the metal plate to just the length. To make it easier to cut the metal plate into a round shape, first, I have to measure and cut this plate into squares first. Now, I took this sample plastic sheet and put it on top of the cut metal plate to cut into a circle. The metal plate is already cut into circles. Next step, I will connect these two pieces together. When the metal plate is welded, the heat of the electric field will cause the thin metal plate to bend. To make it straight, I bend it with a lathe using a processing tool. This is a processing device that uses a bearing to make it run through the plate that I clamped on the lathe chuck. When the lathe is turned on, I push the processing device to press the metal plate. Do this so that the metal plate turns straight. Then, I machine the edges of the metal plate to make it round. The lathe plate is limited to 44 millimeters in circumference by 87. After turning, I drilled a 6 millimeter hole in the center of the plate. Now, it is time to clean the surface of the metal plate, which is rough due to lathes and holes. This is another processing tool, designed to make a template for welding a metal plate with a frame for placing the bearing, so that the bearing is in the center of the metal plate. Take a look back at this section. This is a 629Z type bearing. And this one is a metal plate that is equal in width to the thickness of the bearing. I will bend this metal plate into a circle to insert the bearing. Now, I do this to bend a metal plate. Although, this does not bend, but good. It works and is fast too. Now, I welded the link face of the bent metal plate. The steel plate is thin. That's it. We need to use enough electricity to fit the thin metal plate, so that it does not leak when we weld. I will put it on top of the processing equipment. Do this, bearing will be in the center. This recycling tool, we need to make it the same size as the bearing circle. And we put it like this. When we put it in like this, metal plate circle, it will hold a bearing in the middle. Now, I started welding. Doing this, we will not worry, bearing is not in the middle, and we will not have to spend time trying to find the middle ground. Now, I'm going to widen this hole. With the drill bit widens this hole to pinch the bearing to the nut here. Then, I take it to associate with bearing. I had to do it like this and put it on the bearing. And check that. Is it running straight and good? Now I weld it to the bearing. Check it again. It looks good. I think I weld it just 3 points is enough. At this stage, I will not use this sample plastic panel, because at the same time I put it like this, it will not be equal to the edge of the circle. And it is not easy to align the edges evenly. It also wastes a lot of time. The best way is, I had to use a template like this, because it has an outer edge. And compared to this plastic sample panel it does not differ, including the size of the circle, and the gap is equal. Take a look at this, every hole overlaps. I put my palms behind like this so you can see that every hole is a match. Now, I will put it like this. This template will hold this circle inside, so I do not need to use plastic templates anymore. Do this already and then I marked each hole by the hole in the template. When removing the sample, each of the targeted points looks equally good. And now I'm going to press at every point to pierce it. This is a hardened steel. I will use it to hold the face on the target. Then I use a hand drill to drill a hole. This piercing has many stages. At this stage I drilled a millimeter. This will make it easier to expand each hole later. Now a millimeter hole is already drilled. This is a template for bolts. I already made it from the perforated metal plate to fit the bolts. It has 6 holes. I put it like this. This way it will be easier for welding. And this is a 3 millimeter bolt. I will weld it here. All bolts have 6. And I have to weld it one at a time without having to measure the width of each bolt. Because the holes in this mold I have already measured and laid the width of it. So I just welded it to be ready. Now, take a look at it. Each bolt has an equal width. Come and see this side. This is the pad for the 12 millimeter bolt. And this is an 8 millimeter nut. I put this nut into the hole of this pad. These items are easy to find at construction material stores. I need to install this nut to fit the bottom of the pad. And this is a 6-hole template used for drilling holes in metal pads. And this is the iron rod. It has a size of 5 millimeters. I inserted it into the mold to keep the center core of the pad. When I put this pad in, this pad is used in conjunction with the template to keep the center point together. Now, I marked each point through the holes in the template. And I drill holes like this. Each hole I take 4 millimeters in size. I put it like this. Do you see? Each hole corresponds to a bolt. And I twist the nut to tighten it. And this is body filler. I mix it with a lot of yeast to make it dry faster. After stirring it completely, I apply it on the prepared shield. It does not have to be clean, just make it thick, because we need to polish it again. Now the body filler is dry, then I have to remove this cover to take it to the next lathe. Now, I need to enlarge these holes to a size of 3 mm bolts. Now look at this. I use it to assemble 3 mm bolts. Then, I have to put it like this. And then, I had to weld it to the disc. Now, this disc is already welded with 3 mm bolts. Look at it, from one bolt to another, it's flat and very straight. Next step, I will fill the body filler. Now, the weld is already welded, and the body filler is filled. So the next step is to paint. Now, the paint is done. Here is the done profile. Next, I have to weld with this metal cover. Then, I have to weld with this iron rod. And I have to make it like this. Now it's time to put them together. Now, I have a disc for the new axle. This type of disc has the same shape as the real thing. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I will try to find special points from real to create. See you in the next video.